It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others.
The walls of Buckingham Palace had seen countless scandals, whispered betrayals, and quiet power struggles, but nothing could prepare the royal family for what was about to unfold. Prince William, the future King of England, stepped into the public eye and, with a single statement, shattered the fragile peace within the monarchy. His words weren't just an homage to his mother, Princess Diana. They were a direct challenge to the woman who had long fought for acceptance within the royal fold, Queen Camilla. As the world processed the weight of William's declaration, an undeniable truth emerged. Diana's legacy was no longer just a memory. It was a force strong enough to bring the monarchy to its knees. And at the center of the storm was Queen Camilla, whose carefully constructed image was suddenly in ruins. Inside the palace, chaos erupted. Whispers turned into frantic discussions. Royal aides rushed through the halls, desperately trying to assess the damage. Camilla, known for her composed public persona, was nowhere to be seen. Sources reveal that as soon as William's words reached her, she retreated into her private chambers, overcome with emotion. But why? What was it about William's statement that cut so deep? After years of carefully navigating her way into royal acceptance, why did this moment feel like a personal attack? The answer was clear. Camilla had spent decades shedding the label of the other woman, working tirelessly to secure her place beside King Charles. And just when she thought she had turned the tide, William, his mother's son, reminded the world of the very history she had tried to leave behind. As the news spread, reports surfaced of Camilla's emotional breakdown. Palace insiders described her as devastated, unable to contain her emotions. While she had endured scrutiny before, this was different. This wasn't just a headline, it was a seismic shift in the power dynamics of the royal family. King Charles found himself in an impossible position. On one side, his beloved wife was struggling under the weight of past ghosts. On the other, his son had spoken the unfiltered truth about Diana's legacy, something Charles himself had avoided for years. Behind closed doors, the tension was palpable. Was this William's way of asserting dominance as the future king? Had he grown tired of the quiet reverence the monarchy had shown toward Camilla's rise? More importantly, had he just reignited a battle that Charles had spent decades trying to bury? One thing was clear, this wasn't just a family disagreement. It was a moment of reckoning for the entire royal institution. The moment William's words hit the public sphere, the reaction was instantaneous. News anchors dissected his statement, social media exploded, and headlines screamed of royal turmoil. Prince William breaks silence on Diana's legacy. Camilla left in tears. William's stunning tribute to Diana. The Queen Consort's emotional breakdown, and history repeats itself. The royal rift that echoes Diana's pain. Public opinion was just as fiery. Supporters of Diana hailed William as a hero, a son determined to protect his mother's memory. But others saw it as a strategic move, a way for William to challenge the very foundation of the monarchy. The question everyone was asking, was this the beginning of a larger war within the royal family? The British monarchy had survived wars, divorces, and scandals, but the ghost of Diana still loomed over them. William's words weren't just a tribute, they were a reminder that Diana was still present, still beloved, and still irreplaceable. For years, the royal family had carefully managed Diana's legacy, acknowledging her impact while ensuring it didn't overshadow the present. But now, William had blown open a door that the monarchy had worked tirelessly to keep closed. What he said wasn't just about the past, it was about the future. A future where Diana's influence dictated how the royal family evolved. A future where Camilla, despite her title, would always be measured against the woman she once replaced. The monarchy had spent decades trying to move forward, but with one powerful statement, Prince William had just dragged them back into the past. But what exactly did William say that left Queen Camilla devastated? The answer would change everything. The moment had finally arrived. Standing before an audience that hung on to his every word, Prince William spoke in a tone that left no room for doubt. His message was clear, his intent unmistakable. This was not just another royal address, this was a declaration, a promise, a reckoning. And the weight of his words sent an undeniable shockwave through the monarchy. His statement was crafted with precision. There was no direct attack, no outright defiance, but the implications were deafening. He spoke of honor, of duty, of preserving the memory of the woman who had shaped him. He did not mention Camilla by name, yet in his silence he spoke volumes. His words carried the presence of Diana, a name that could never truly be erased from royal history. He praised the values she had instilled in him, the compassion she had embodied, the love she had shown the world, and in doing so, he reaffirmed a truth that many had feared. Diana's legacy was not just alive, it was untouchable. The reaction was immediate. Those within the palace felt the ground shift beneath them. Advisors whispered behind closed doors, scrambling to assess the damage. Camilla, already reeling, faced the reality of a battle she thought had been long won. This was not an attack on her directly, but it may as well have been. William's words did more than just remember Diana, they reinforced the very division that had threatened the monarchy for decades. For King Charles, the dilemma deepened. His son had taken a public stance, aligning himself with the past rather than the present. A line had been drawn, and whether intentional or not, it placed Camilla in a vulnerable position. The monarchy thrived on unity, tradition, on carefully crafted narratives. William had just disrupted all of it. The timing of his statement only fueled speculation. Why now? Was this a spontaneous tribute, or was there a deeper reason behind it? Some believed it was a personal moment, a son honoring his mother without an agenda, but others saw it as a carefully calculated move, a power shift, a message to the public, to the press, and to the very institution he would one day lead. William had never been one to stir controversy, yet this moment felt different. It was as if he was making a stand, one that could not be ignored. Outside the palace walls, the public response was explosive. Within minutes, social media erupted. Hashtags flooded timelines, news outlets dissected every syllable of William's statement, and commentators debated the deeper implications. Supporters praised him for his unwavering devotion, calling him the true heir to Diana's compassion. Others saw it as a moment of defiance, an unspoken challenge to the monarchy's past decisions. Regardless of interpretation, one fact remained. William had reignited the world's passion for Diana, and in doing so, he had reignited the very conversation the royal family had tried to move past. What happened next was inevitable. The press ran with the story, analyzing every angle, every hidden meaning, every possible consequence. The palace was silent, but the damage had been done. Diana's presence was once again at the center of royal discourse, her legacy more powerful than ever, and Camilla, despite her years of effort, found herself once again standing in the shadow of a woman whose influence refused to fade. To understand why William's words had such an impact, we must look at the powerful legacy Diana left behind. There are figures in history who leave a mark so deep that time can never erase them. Princess Diana was one of them. She was more than just a member of the royal family. She was a force of nature, a woman who defied expectations and redefined what it meant to be a princess. Her legacy was never about crowns and titles. It was about love, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. And despite the years that have passed, her influence still lingers, shaping the very foundation of the monarchy she once sought to change. But Diana was different from the moment she stepped into the public eye. While tradition dictated that royals remain distant, she embraced the people, holding their hands, looking them in the eye, and making them feel seen. She walked through hospitals, greeted that society had forgotten, and shattered the walls of royal formality with simple gestures of kindness. The world adored her, not just because she was a princess, but because she was real. She cried openly, laughed without restraint, and showed vulnerability in a family known for its cold, polished image. Her humanitarian work extended far beyond photo opportunities. She fought to bring awareness to issues that others ignored. She stood beside AIDS patients when fear and misinformation isolated them. She walked through active minefields, drawing attention to the dangers still threatening communities long after wars had ended. She spoke openly about mental health, admitting her struggles at a time when such honesty was unheard of. Everything she did was bold, unfiltered, and deeply human, and because of that, the public never let go of her. But her openness also made her a threat. Within the palace, Diana was an anomaly. Too unpredictable, too beloved, too much of a challenge to the rigid structure of royal life. She was meant to fit a role, to follow the rules, to exist within the confines of duty. Instead, she rewrote the rules entirely, and when her marriage to Charles crumbled, the world took her side. She became a symbol of resilience, of strength, of a woman wronged but not broken. The monarchy had never experienced anything like her, and it never would again. This is why Diana's memory has never faded and why Camilla's presence has always been met with resistance. No matter how much time has passed, the public still sees her through the lens of history. To them, she will always be the woman who replaced Diana, the one who stood beside Charles while Diana suffered alone. Fair or not, this perception has remained, making it impossible for Camilla to fully escape Diana's shadow. Every comparison is a reminder that for many, there will only ever be one true princess in their hearts. For William, this is not just history, it is personal. Diana was more than his mother. She was his guiding light. He watched her fight battles she never should have had to face. He saw her pain, her strength, and her love, and he vowed never to let the world forget her. His devotion is not just about the past, it is about protecting her legacy, ensuring that the values she stood for continue to define the future of the monarchy. But while Diana's influence remains strong, Camilla's journey has been anything but easy. For decades, Camilla's name was whispered in scandal, forever tied to a story that reshaped the British monarchy. She was cast as the other woman, the figure at the center of a love triangle that shattered the royal fairy tale. The public saw her as the reason for Diana's heartbreak, the woman who had been in the shadows of Charles and Diana's marriage long before it ended. No amount of time could erase that perception, and for years, she bore the weight of public disdain. When Diana tragically passed, the idea of Camilla stepping into any royal role was unthinkable. The wounds were too fresh, the betrayal too deeply ingrained. The public saw Diana as their princess, wronged, yet beloved. Camilla, by contrast, was seen as the outsider, the unwelcome presence who had been waiting in the wings. It took years for Charles to slowly reintroduce her, ensuring that every public appearance was carefully crafted to shift perception. But acceptance would not come easily. Camilla understood the challenge before her. She could never compete with Diana's memory, so she took a different approach, one of quiet endurance. She kept a low profile, avoiding controversy, working in the background, and gradually stepping into a more public role. She dedicated herself to charitable causes, supporting domestic violence victims, literacy programs, and healthcare initiatives. She avoided personal interviews, choosing to let time, rather than words, heal the damage. And over the years, the strategy worked, at least, to an extent. The public never fully embraced her, but they softened. She became known not as a villain, but as a steadfast presence in Charles's life. When the Queen gave her formal approval, stating that Camilla would one day be Queen Consort, it was seen as a sign that the past had finally been put to rest. For Camilla, it was the final step in a decades-long journey. She had fought to earn her place, and now she had it. But then came William's statement. His words, spoken with precision and intent, didn't just honor Diana, they reignited everything Camilla had worked so hard to move past. The past was no longer past. It was back in the headlines, back in the public discourse, back in the hearts of those who had never forgiven her. Social media erupted, with countless voices declaring their unwavering loyalty to Diana. Suddenly, Camilla's title, her years of effort, her carefully rebuilt image, all of it felt fragile once more. The media wasted no time dissecting the fallout. Old interviews resurfaced, revisiting Diana's pain, her heartbreak, and her famous words about there being 3 people in her marriage. Polls began to circulate, asking the public if they truly accepted Camilla as their queen. The results painted a clear picture. Many still saw her as an outsider, a replacement for the woman they had loved and lost. For Camilla, this was a devastating blow. No matter how much she had done to reshape her story, William's words had reminded the world of where she had started. The approval she had fought so hard to gain now felt like it was slipping away. But this isn't just Camilla's struggle. King Charles now faces an impossible choice between his wife and his son. King Charles had spent a lifetime preparing for the throne, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The moment his son spoke, the balance of power shifted, and Charles found himself trapped between 2 forces he could not control: his wife, whose tears carried the weight of decades of struggle, and his son, whose words had reignited wounds that had never fully healed. The conflict was not just personal, it was public, and the world was watching. For Charles, the past had always been inescapable. The shadow of Diana followed him everywhere, woven into the very fabric of his reign. He had spent years attempting to rebuild his image, to prove that he was more than the man who had once betrayed the world's beloved princess. But no matter how much time passed, the past refused to stay buried. And now, his son had forced it back into the spotlight. For, from the black and The guilt was something Charles had carried privately for years. He knew that his choices had shaped William and Harry in ways he could never undo. They had watched their mother suffer, had witnessed the coldness of royal duty, and had grown up understanding that even within their own family, alliances were fragile. And while Harry had taken his pain and left, William had remained, quietly navigating the same institution that had once caused his mother so much misery. Now, for the first time, William had made his stance clear. His loyalty was to Diana's legacy, and in doing so, he had unintentionally challenged everything Charles had spent years trying to stabilize. Behind closed doors, tensions ran high. Camilla was devastated, the press was relentless, royal advisors scrambled to contain the damage, and Charles was left to mediate a crisis that was as personal as it was political. His wife needed reassurance, his son demanded acknowledgement, and his role as king demanded that he keep the monarchy from unraveling under the weight of its history. The impact of this controversy went beyond personal turmoil. It had placed Charles in the most difficult position of his reign. The monarchy thrived on unity, on the image of a family that stood together despite their struggles. But how could he present a united front when the division was so public, so undeniable? The people were not asking where he stood. They were demanding to know. Would he side with his son and acknowledge the power of Diana's legacy, or would he stand beside his wife and reinforce the legitimacy of the path he had chosen? Every decision comes with consequences. If he failed to acknowledge William's stance, he risked further alienating the public, whose loyalty to Diana had never wavered. If he showed too much sympathy for Camilla, he risked undoing the progress he had made in securing her place as queen. No answer would satisfy everyone, and so, Charles did what he had always done. He tried to manage it quietly. Meetings were held, statements carefully crafted, and damage control was put in place. But the truth was, this was beyond control. The story had already taken on a life of its own, and no royal protocol could contain it. Charles may be king, but for the first time, he was not the one holding the power. While Charles wrestles with his role, William's defiance is only making him more powerful in the public eye. The moment William spoke, everything changed. His words were not just a tribute to his mother, they were a declaration, a signal that the future of the monarchy would not be dictated by the past. In that instant, he became more than just the heir to the throne. He became a symbol of something greater, the people's prince. The man is determined to honor Diana's memory, no matter the cost. For years, the public had watched him walk a fine line, balancing royal duty with the legacy of the mother he had adored. But this time, there was no careful diplomacy. He had chosen his side, and the people took notice. Support flooded in from around the world. Social media erupted, praising him for standing firm in his devotion to Diana. The same public that had once adored his mother now saw him as her true successor, not just in blood, but in spirit. This was not the first time William had honored Diana's legacy. From the way he approached charity work to his interactions with the public, everything he did carried echoes of her influence. He had walked in her footsteps, continuing her efforts in homelessness, mental health advocacy, and humanitarian work. Even in his personal life, he had made choices that reflected the values she had instilled in him. He had married for love, prioritized his family, and remained fiercely protective of his wife and children, something Diana had always longed for. But this moment was different. This was not a quiet gesture or a personal decision. This was a public stand, one that reshaped how people saw him as the future king. For years, the monarchy had clung to tradition, struggling to adapt to an evolving world. William, however, had proven that he was unafraid to challenge those traditions. He had embraced a modern approach, speaking openly about mental health, showing emotion in ways the royal family had never done before, and rejecting the distant, untouchable image that had defined past monarchs. This was what set him apart. He was not just another royal figure following the rules. He was a leader willing to break them when necessary. The people saw him as their voice inside an institution that often felt disconnected from reality. And with this latest move, he had cemented himself as the future of the monarchy. For King Charles, this shift was undeniable. No matter how hard he tried to maintain control, the power was slipping toward his son. William was not just a prince anymore. He was a leader in his own right, one that the public had already embraced. The monarchy was evolving, and it was William, not Charles, who was shaping its future. But inside the palace, not everyone supports William's bold actions, and royal tensions are brewing. The royal family had weathered countless storms, but this was different. The battle lines had been drawn, not in words but in actions. On one side stood King Charles and Queen Camilla, representing tradition, stability, and the carefully crafted image of the monarchy. On the other, Prince William embodies the future, modern ideals, and an unshakable loyalty to his mother's legacy. The rift was no longer speculation, it was real, and it was tearing the family apart. Inside the palace, tensions were undeniable. Princess Anne, ever the pragmatist, had stepped in as the quiet mediator. She had always been the royal family's most reliable force, the one who understood duty above all else. But even she struggled to contain the growing divide. Behind closed doors, discussions were held, and attempts were made to de-escalate the situation. But the damage had already been done. Then there was Prince Harry. His reaction was perhaps the most anticipated. Would he stand with his brother, reinforcing the bond they once shared, or would he remain distant, too far removed from the royal machine to take a side? Reports suggested mixed emotions. Pride in William's tribute to their mother, but sadness at the deepening fractures within the family. Harry had chosen a different path, but the echoes of the past still reached him, no matter how far away he was. The battle wasn't just personal, it was ideological. Charles and Camilla represented the monarchy as it had always been, rooted in protocol and centuries-old traditions. William, and to some extent Harry, symbolized a break from that legacy, a new vision of royalty that resonated with the modern world. The divide was no longer just about personal grievances, it was about the very future of the monarchy itself. Beyond the palace walls, the world is watching, and their response is louder than ever. The battle between Diana's legacy and the crown had always existed, but now it was more visible than ever. As Prince William's words echoed across the world, the public's response was swift and decisive. Support for Diana's memory surged, while Camilla found herself once again facing the court of public opinion, a court that had never fully forgiven or forgotten. Social media erupted with praise for William. His tribute to Diana was seen as a long overdue acknowledgement of her enduring influence, a reminder that her impact had not faded with time. Hashtags calling him the true heir to Diana's values flooded platforms, while Camilla's image took yet another hit. Public polls reflected the divide. Diana remained untouchable in the hearts of many, while Camilla still struggled to win over a significant portion of the population. The shift in public perception wasn't just about individuals, it was about the monarchy itself. Over the years, the institution had fought to maintain relevance, but cracks were forming. The younger generation in particular saw the royal family through a different lens. Where older generations valued tradition and continuity, younger people questioned the monarchy's role in the modern world. Many admired William's willingness to embrace change, seeing him as a leader who could evolve with the times. Polls painted a stark reality. While Charles and Camilla had made strides in public approval, they still lagged behind William and Kate, and with every controversy, trust in the monarchy as a whole wavered. The battle was no longer just between Diana's memory and Camilla's reputation, it was between the old ways and the new, between a monarchy that clung to tradition and one that was forced to adapt. This controversy isn't just about the past, it's shaping the very future of the monarchy. The monarchy stands at a pivotal moment, its future uncertain. William's bold stance has sparked a conversation that cannot be ignored. His actions have strengthened his public image, but at what cost? Has he inadvertently weakened his father's reign, or has he simply accelerated an inevitable shift? For Camilla, this controversy threatens the fragile acceptance she has fought to secure. Will she ever truly escape Diana's shadow, or has William ensured that the comparison will last for generations? More importantly, will this force the monarchy to modernize? The institution has long resisted change, but the public is demanding something new. As King Charles struggles to maintain stability, the real question is whether William's vision will redefine what it means to be royal. His mother once shook the monarchy to its core, now it may be her son who finishes what she started. The British monarchy stands at a crossroads. Will it evolve to embrace Diana's legacy, or will it remain trapped in its past?